take that into consideration. But I've been in Philadelphia long enough. I've been a Philadelphia sports fan long enough to know that that's easier said than done. So you know where we are, live, Sports Rap Podcast, the group on Facebook. So you can get there and tune in. Also, we have a calling number now. I'm gonna open up this live.
Okay.
I'm gonna add the stuff in here, and we're gonna do what we do. We're gonna give you some scores from yesterday in Major League Baseball. We're gonna give you some news and some updates, and we're gonna hold our football scores until the second half of the show, and that's when we will give you our picks for week 3.
Yes, sir. Starting Thursday.
So, I am typing in right now the call-in number, and I will periodically give it throughout this broadcast. So just be aware, pay attention, and like I said, some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Right.
If you have any comments, any questions, or anything like that, please feel free to either chime in on the live with your comments or call in. So, get into some baseball scores real quick, and these are: the Indians defeat the Reds 11-1. The Rockies get blanked by the Nationals 3-0. The Blue Jays outlast the Twins 5-3. The Orioles fall to the Red Sox 8-6. The Tigers blank the Rays 2-0. The Dodgers also blank the Reds 2-0.
Okay.
5-6 or 6-5. Marlins take that game over the Pirates in 10 innings. The Diamondbacks fall in a close one to the Astros in Houston 7-6. The Cubs go into Milwaukee and beat the Brewers 6-4. The Mariners outlast the Royals 7-1. Robert Reeves, thanks for tuning in, bro, as always. The White Sox, Chicago White Sox over the Texas Rangers in Texas 7-2.
Right.
The Braves, outlast the Giants, holding on to that lead in first place in the National League East over the Phillies. They take that game 3-0 over the Giants. The A's defeat the Angels 3-2, also in 10 innings. And the Phillies take another one on the chin. They fall to the Mets in a close one, 3-2. It's not really helping their chances of getting in. They're, I think, now about 3.5 games out of first place.
Okay.
They might be still 2 to 3 games somewhere around that area.
We got a shot
out of the wild card. They got a shot, but they got games that they gave back, so to speak, in the last week or 2. Games against I think it was not the Pirates. Somebody they should have beaten, and they lost a couple games. I think it was might have been the Rockies or somebody, but they were on a winning streak. But then they just hit a little funk, and sadly, the funk that they hit was against teams that they should have beaten. WNBA scores from Sunday.
Okay.
The Atlanta Dream fall to the Sun 84-64. The Aces edge out the Mercury 84-83. The Lynx beat up a little bit on the Mystics 83-77. The Sparks fall in a close one 84-87 to the Wings. And the Fever fall to the Sky 98-87. Those are your scores and your updates for Monday, September 20th, 2021. So we're going to move into some news, just little quick things. As you know, like I said, we're into football season. We're into week 2. So we're going to have a lot of football talk in the next several months, going up into the Super Bowl. So, and in between there, we will have some basketball talk coming up again. I know people have
preseason next month
heard or not heard much as far as updates on the Sixers and the Ben Simmons situation. I think the most recent updates were that, and a lot of media outlets are reporting that the Sixers are expecting him to be on the roster and play at the beginning of the season. Because again, like I mentioned on air, and I mentioned to quite a few people that I've talked to, the Sixers as an organization are not going to make a move just to make a move. Any move that they make is definitely in Daryl Morey's plan to make it beneficial to the team,
Right.
not to appease Ben Simmons and his feelings, if whatever, if you want to call it that. But we all know that basketball is a business, and they're going to do what works best business-wise for that organization moving forward.
Right.
So, the Clippers are building their own presence. They have a new arena projected to come into the 2024-2025
Okay.
season. I think that's a good thing for them.
Fan base too.
I think it's a good thing for the fan base because now you'll have your own building, something that you can call your own,
So the Staples.
and you can possibly grow your fan base.
Right.
I know the fan base has grown because of where they've been in the last couple of years, even though they haven't been successful as
Yeah.
the people, a lot of fans expected them to be. But now having your own building, I think that
Separate yourself.
will separate you a little bit. Then you can
Start to
reinstitute
right.
or have a new identity,
Right.
rebirth for yourself and in your own building.
Yeah.
Otani is dealing with arm soreness and may miss the remainder of the season.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts to appear in the first ever in-season Hard Knocks.
Mm.
The NBA is looking into a in-season tournament projected to pay the winners of that tournament
Oh, for real?
$1 million. I got some notes on that, and if we have some time in between, we'll get to that. If not, I will definitely bring that back to you next week and talk about that. The Bucks hire Lisa Byington. She becomes the first female play-by-play announcer for a major U.S. team, men's team, as a matter of fact. Angels infielder Louis Renigfo has been charged with falsifying his divorce.
What? You serious?
Crazy, dude. Like, this is,
America.
I think this is under Venezuelan restriction or jurisdiction, though.
Wow.
But I don't even know how to get into talking about that
I mean,
and
right.
saying anything. But you know, for you to falsify your divorce,
It's like faking your
it's
death.
really crazy.
Right.
The taunting penalty had an effect on the new. They say it reached a new low, but it had an effect on the game in Seattle
It's ridiculous.
yesterday. The Ravens gave an epic tribute to Michael K. Williams. If you don't know who that is, he's the actor that passed away last week. He was a lot of fame from his role as Omar in The Wire, but he was a superb actor, thespian, off Broadway, on Broadway, in the movies, on TV. So rest in peace, Mr. Michael K. Williams.
See, yes.
Over the weekend, also this past Friday, another good comedic actor and comedian, Mr. A.J. Johnson, passed away on Friday. Some of you might not know him, but he is from Friday. He's
Right.
Ezel from Friday, and he's also has done some stuff with Master P and I Got the Hookup.
Yeah.
Over the weekend in Philadelphia, it's just another tidbit. It's been a crazy time since before the pandemic. And we talk about we can have a list of things. We talked about the looting and the rioting, and then we hit the pandemic, and then we did this. But the gun violence
Why not?
is
Crazy.
basically overshadowing everything else that's going on in this city. So over the weekend, there were 19 people shot, 7 were dead.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that this is going on in our city, and you can go on a limb and say it's not too safe. You have to be super cautious
Right.
wherever you are. Over the past several days also, I have the Citizens app on my phone,
Right.
and I've seen also beginning again a number of carjackings and car thefts.
Accidents too.
Yeah, I mean the accidents gonna happen anyway
Yeah.
because of the way people drive, but I'm just talking about the
Crazy.
violence
Right.
and things of that nature,
Right.
the carjackings and the car theft. So people,
Right.
be mindful of your surroundings, pay attention to your surroundings.
Yes, sir.
When you get out of your car, whether you're home, at work, at the store, lock your cars up
Be careful.
and be careful, and don't leave anything to chance.
Yeah.
You know, I know people get comfortable with
Wallets.
all of the stuff that we have going on today with our media stuff like that. You have
Right.
cords to charge your phones. You know, like people have
Put
smartphones,
it
their
in
lifelines or
glove
whatever.
compartment,
Tuck those cords away.
Yeah.
You know, don't even give, although you may be certain that there's nothing of value that they can see or that they can
Put it
get to,
away.
you leave in
Put it
there.
away.
Just the way things are going now, you
Leave it
just
home.
really, really seriously don't want to leave anything to chance.
Yeah.
So like I said, if you got cords in your phone, you charge your phone, you listen to music, just tuck them away,
Yeah.
you know, out of sight, so people can't just look in and see them and have any
Reason.
kinds of ideas.
Right.
So one of the things I did last week, and I have one partner here, and when Baldy gets in, or next time he's in, if he doesn't call in or chime in,
Right.
I will definitely bring this up to him again as well.
Right.
One of the things I did last week, which was our first show following our 7-year anniversary, we had a Monday off in between there because of the holiday. But last week he came back, and
Beautiful show.
I ironically, that past last weekend was the anniversary, if you will, or the remembrance of 9/11 tragedy that happened with the World Trade Center towers in
Right.
New York City. We all know that. And the two questions that I answered, and I said that when I got my partners in here, I would run that by them and see what their reaction is and what they remember. First was that, and I mentioned to everyone where I was, what I was doing, and how it affected me in that day. And then I went on to talk about how it affected sports shortly following that. And if you saw this past weekend, opening weekend in the NFL, a lot of teams made reference to it. And faithfully, the New York Giants, because it was in their city, they do something every year, and they're continuing to do that, so I applaud them for that.
Right.
So Frank,
Hey.
911, 20 years ago.
Wow. I don't.
20 years ago.
Yeah,
And that's hard to believe
Yeah.
that it was that long. It just shows you time waits for
Right.
no one.
Right. See, I know you chime in. I know where I was at. I don't know what the question you was about to ask.
Yeah, that was the
Where I
question I was
was
at.
20
Where
years
were
ago,
you?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where were you
Airport.
when you found out what happened, and what were the immediate effects on you at that moment?
Well, I was working with at Parkway and the airport. Not to chime off the subject, whatever. I make great friends there. My friend Janelle, Milton. They were in my wedding. Patrick. So, when I found out, my coworkers told me that Frank, the planes just hit the World Trade Center in New York. I said, get out of here. And then the impact on DC and everything, and it's just emotional, man. It's like I couldn't believe that. And then they made a big announcement at the airport, Dwayne. It's like, I'm like, man. Not saying it felt like a dream. So when I got home that night, though, D, and I was like, it was all in the news and everything. I was like, it's something you'll never forget, man. It's like, wow.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
You
It's
definitely.
like 20
definitely
years.
won't
Can't believe
forget
it's
that.
20 years ago.
Yeah,
Whatever, so.
that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Like it's been 20 years since that happened,
Yeah.
and
Sad.
it changed the lives of so
everybody.
many.
Yes.
And I went as far last week as to say it changed the nation.
Right, it did.
You know, forever. So
Yeah.
that
Sad,
was
man.
that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one
Where you was at, D?
was I was again I was working at a barbershop.
Okay.
I was actually on a break. I didn't have any clients at the moment, and I stepped outside, attempting to make a phone call, and I didn't have a signal. I couldn't get on the phone
Yeah.
or anything.
Right.
So a couple other people had the same reaction. They looked to make phone calls or things like that, and they didn't know. Then we turned the TV on,
You know
and
why.
we saw what happened.
Right.
And the way it affected me was the fact that it was in New York City, which is maybe 45 minutes to an hour, at most an hour, 15 minutes or so away from the city.
Right.
But again, like I mentioned, it affected the lives of so many.
Right.
And again, like I said, I went as far as to say it affected the nation and changed the nation,
Sad.
where I couldn't even check on my own people
Right.
in my own city
Yeah, the phones.
to see if they knew
Anybody.
what happened or if we knew anybody there,
Yeah.
which was, I think, the scariest part.
Yes, it was.
Because at the time, I had some friends that lived in New York. My parents had some friends that lived in New York, and you couldn't really check on them. And then, like I said, even people here,
Right.
you couldn't even check on people here
Right.
to see if they knew anything about what happened. So that was really
Right.
how it affected
Was
me.
they okay then? Like,
Yeah, I mean, after the fact, you know,
Yeah,
everything
found
was
out.
fine,
Okay.
but you know, it's just that moment,
Scary, yeah.
that you know where you can't get a hold of somebody,
Right.
and it's like it doesn't have to be a full-fledged conversation. It's just a
You okay?
check-in. You
Right,
okay?
yeah.
All right? You know,
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
it moving
Okay.
or whatever. But couldn't do that, and I think that was one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest ways
Right.
it affected me, because I knew where I was and I knew I was okay.
Right.
So it was just the thought of making sure that
Right. Just that.
my
third,
people
yeah, right.
were okay.
Exactly.
The second thing I did was I went through a list. I took time, since we were off that Monday, Labor Day,
Right.
and in preparation for the return show on the 13th last Monday.
Right.
I had enough time, and I took time, and I went through my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I went through my social media. I went
Right.
through YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I even went through past episodes that were recorded of the podcast,
Right.
going back 6 years.
Came a long way.
And I reflected, and I remembered everyone, or tried to remember everyone that played a part in sports rap
Right.
along the way. Whether it was just
Mm-hmm.
coming in, having an interview
Yes. Right. Mm-hmm.
as a guest,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Out of town.
Some people have helped
Mm-hmm.
in other outlets along the way.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to commemorate them and remember them, since we were remembering, and I did that. And
Awesome.
for me, the question that was posed, or question that I wanted to pose, was,
Mm-hmm.
what did you feel was your, or the maybe biggest moment of the show? Now, for me,
On the show.
it was very difficult, because I've been here from the very beginning,
Okay.
built it from the ground up,
Right.
and I've been a part of all the change. So there's been some change from the very beginning,
Right.
but I've been, like they say, the one main constant in all of this growth,
Yeah.
change, and everything
Right.
was me.
Right.
So it was hard for me to identify one or two single moments which surely
It stood out.
I could say stood out for me.
Right.
So that's why I went with the list. And as I went through the list, I kind of tried to remember and mention
I got two there.
everything that was told to us, or what was discussed with every individual that I could personally remember. And again, if I forgot some people, like I said in the post and everything like that, it's from, it's not an oversight. It was, well, it was an oversight. It was a small mistake,
Right.
because of so much work that has been done.
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
that there were some people that might have gotten forgotten in the mix, but
Right.
you know, I did go through that. So
Hey, real quick, is that an event you asked about? Talking about an
it
event, or
doesn't matter.
It could be,
Event,
or somebody was at the show.
event, an
I got
interview,
two.
or whatever.
Too. I got
So
two.
you got two.
Ornaments, man. I want to thank y'all guys very much, though, D. This past, 2 weeks ago, right? MC
Mhm.
Live, the event with our anniversary.
Mhm.
Oh, I've been with the show now, for 3 years now, something like
Yep.
that. So that's one of them. And I have a couple few, or I'll probably text you tonight and let you know. You put on the feed, whatever. But that was a major one, man. And I mean, besides her being one of my favorite hip hop artists, whatever, that I couldn't believe I was there.
Absolutely.
I ain't gonna lie, I couldn't believe I was there. And I'm upset. I apologize for not coming to the show last week to let you know how I feel. Now I'm saying it now.
Mhm.
That was an awesome show, man. I was like, wow, I'm here, really. Me and my wife was
Yeah.
there, and it was a beautiful day. I thank y'all. I thank
No problem. You're welcome.
Part of it. Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah.
you know, like you said, you see how
Yeah.
we do things here at Heat 100.
Fun, man.
You know, a lot of that, or all of that, was put together and handled by the boss lady.
Boss lady.
But
Mhm.
since the time I've actually come to the station
Mm-hmm.
up until now,
Right.
our relationship has grown a lot.
She's a beautiful person, man.
As of right now,
Mm-hmm.
I am currently one of the last shows from the very beginning, from when I first got here.
Okay.
Shout outs to Venus. Venus is coming back tomorrow night with Intimate Creations.
Okay.
So you can check that out. I'll post it, and she's posting stuff to get you the direct time, so you can tune into that. But again, with all the change I can say, from when I first got here up until now, again, the relationship between Monica and myself has grown.
Beautiful.
It's grown on more than one level. It's
Right.
grown on a friendly level, and it's also grown on a professional level,
Yes.
where I've learned so much, and I've taken it and run with it, and it helps me in other parts of my life too.
Absolutely.
Because like with this, I have to be detailed. I
Right.
have agendas and deadlines of things that I have to go to, and I admit sometimes with one of my deadlines I'm a little off, and Monica might be laughing right now if she's tuning in about my
Right.
about my outlines for the show.
It's okay.
So sometimes I'm a little late with them, but nonetheless, it's always it gets in. Like they say sometimes, that cliche, better late than never.
Yeah, she sharpened your knife.
So like they say, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Again, last week I also, from the very beginning, I thanked my partners along the way.
Yes.
First partner, Anthony Brooks,
Yup.
thank him. I thank Hope, my partner in life,
Yup.
for filling in when she could, when she did.
Absolutely.
And again, Baldy, who's not here live with us right now,
Ball.
but like I mentioned to you last week, and I mentioned to you time and time again, and he will be so humble, and he'll respond to this by saying,
Right.
without me, there is no show.
Yeah.
And I say, I appreciate that, but I appreciate him even more, again, like I said to everybody last week on air, because of the way that situation played out.
Yeah.
Childhood friends, same neighborhood.
Right.
He was watching social media, watching the show or listening to it or something, or heard from another friend who was here,
Yup.
and wanted to come on and talk about his organization. And from then on, like I said, I was a little hesitant at first to ask him to come on as a
Right.
co-host, but once I decided to go ahead and do it, there was never any question, never any doubts.
Right.
He did it. And then Frank came in,
Yes, sir.
and it's been the three of us ever since. So I appreciate you guys
Oh, thank you.
both for
Right.
being here with
Right.
me. So I want to get into some quotes that I saw, that I found,
Okay.
and I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4. These quotes tie in, I felt like, very heavily to a lot of the stuff we've talked about on the show, either currently or in the past. So it's a little mixture, it's like a potpourri
Okay.
of things. So again, we are live on Facebook,
Yes, sir.
in the group page,
Yes, sir.
Sports Red Podcast. You know where to find it.
Yup.
And thank you everyone again
Yes.
for tuning in to the Sports Red Podcast right here on Heat 100 Radio. And like I just mentioned, Facebook Live is the group page.
Yep.
If you look in the comments, the number is there to call in. I'm going to give it to you again right now.
Facebook.
267-969-2583.
Are you calling now? Okay.
So we're going to move into these quotes. And I'm going to go with, I wrote them down as I saw them. So I'm not going to go, I don't have any like specific order in which way I want to get to them. But being as though I briefly mentioned about the Sixers situation with Ben Simmons, and we all know that situation. And like I said, it's cooled down a little bit now. But I mentioned 2 things, that it has to be beneficial for the organization, and also mentioned that it's a business.
Right.
So this is one quote that kind of ties into that. This quote is from Carmelo Anthony, and the quote is, and I quote, "Sports is sports. It's a business. There's no loyalty in sports.
Right.
You're an athlete.
Right.
That's your profession. You get paid to do that.
Right.
No one has to be loyal to you." End quote.
Melo said that?
It's what from Carmelo Anthony.
Okay.
So I
You agree with that, Dave?
agree
Somewhat.
I agree with a lot of it.
Right. Me too.
I think it's good to see a tenured veteran like Carmelo that understands the business, has been through it for a while, and it's something that.
I'm sorry. Can I say something real quick? If he didn't put it in there, but I feel as though it's like life. Tomorrow's no promise. It's not
Right.
promise.
So I think it's a good thing for him putting it out,
Right.
so some of the younger players can begin to understand more the business side
Right.
of the sport. And again, like he said, no one has to be loyal to you.
Right.
So that was part of what I got when I mentioned about the Sixers, and I said that Daryl Morey and the Sixers organization
Right.
are going to do what's best for the organization. I also mentioned over the past several weeks and a lot of the time that we've been talking since it started about this Ben Simmons situation.
Right.
They do not necessarily have to trade him at all.
This is getting old.
He's under contract. And we know the running track record of the comments from some of the greats, i.e. Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and plenty of other people. We know what those comments were, what their comments were. But again, I think this quote from Carmelo Anthony fits almost perfectly where he mentions it's a business and he mentions the loyalty part. And again, I talk about this quite often. We talk about these athletes with these major salaries, these crazy high salaries. And he also put it in there too. He said, you're an athlete. That's your profession. You get paid to do that. So in essence, I'm paraphrasing in my own words. He's basically telling you, this is your job. And you come and do your job and you get paid to do your job.
And go home.
It's just like we like to call him the average Joe or the regular working person.
Yeah, work UPS.
You got to go to work. You don't go to work, you don't get paid.
Hey, same thing.
It's simple. Although price brackets and price ranges are significantly higher, but it's
You're a
the
celebrity.
concept is basically the same.
You just a celebrity.
Where you just are on a different stage than the people that sit in the stands and watch you.
Right.
Teams don't have to have any loyalty, and they don't. If again, we see people get traded, we see people get waived, cut. It's no real loyalty in that situation when it's business involved.
Especially NFL.
A lot of times with these, like I say, these major conglomerates, these billions of dollars being floated around, these people are going to do what's best for their
They don't have
business
to keep you.
to stay in business. And if that means moving on from a particular player, particular coach, a particular general manager, whoever, they will do what's best for that organization.
Exactly.
So I applaud Carmelo Anthony for that quote there. Staying along the same theme, when I brought in the Ben Simmons issue, I saw one from Joe Johnson in regards to Ben Simmons. And Philadelphia fans, anybody that's tuned in that's a Sixers fan, hold on to your seat. Take a deep breath, because part of this quote is what we've seen for the past 3 years, what has a lot of Philadelphia fans in an uproar. So here it goes, and I quote, this is from Joe Johnson, and I quote, "You see him playing pickup basketball, shooting threes, jumpers, fadeaways, so we know it's there. You can't care about the misses, just got to keep taking them," end quote. So I'm going to take a breath too, myself, because I know where I can go with this.
Right.
And I kind of do and I kind of don't want to.
Right.
But for sakes of me bringing this quote to you all and wanting to discuss it a little bit, and like I prefaced it, the part where he said you see him playing pickup basketball, shooting threes, jumpers, fadeaways, yada, yada, yada. We've seen that the past 3 summers, maybe even 4.
Yeah.
But as a fan, as a basketball junkie, as a former player, former coach, in those pickup games, that is just supposed to be a professional athlete, staying in tune with his body, staying in tune with his game,
and
and
stay in
possibly working on new things to bring to his game.
Yeah.
So just seeing him do this in these pickup games, sometimes with other NBA stars, sometimes with just a couple sprinkled in or whatever, it doesn't move me anymore. The first time I saw it, it kind of jostled my needle a little bit.
Right.
Now it doesn't. I don't even look at them anymore. I haven't in the past couple years, because in my opinion, if you can't bring it into the game that you get paid for,
Right.
the game that you say you love, the game that you say you want to be the best individual you can be at that particular game, to me, it really means nothing.
Right.
Anybody can perform well when the competition level is either right there where you are, or you are slightly above or above most of that competition that you're playing against.
Right.
And I'm not saying that he's just in the gym playing with regular Joes or anything like that.
Right.
Like I said, he's been in with NBA players, really good NBA players, couple great NBA
Street
players.
ballers.
He's been there with some other players, and then there are times when it's just one or two other players sprinkled in. But like I mentioned, in my opinion, again, that whole concept is supposed to be for you to hone your skills,
Right.
try to advance your game.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, like Melo said, it's your job. So it's just like having a job. You start your job at an entry level, and at some point, unless you just get comfortable, yeah, I threw that pun in there. Like I told you guys before, I just feel like Ben Simmons is comfortable where he is,
Yeah.
and that's a whole different conversation. But when you start a job, a regular job, you go in on the entry level,
Expand.
basically,
Mm.
or for the most part, and then you may get to the point where you want to move up.
Yeah.
So at that point, you start to, or you attempt to find out what do you need to do to get to
Information,
that
yeah.
next level.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Like being a manager.
a lot of times for what they say the working individual, it may be a raise
Right.
that you might need for personal reasons or your regular life.
Right.
You may need it. You just may want the raise, or you might just want to move up. You know, but you have to figure out what you need to bring to the table in order to put yourself in that position
Yeah.
to move up. If
Right.
you do nothing,
You're not gonna move up.
it's no way you're going to move up.
Right,
You're going to be
100%, yeah.
stagnant where you are.
Yeah.
And just real quick, like I said, that Ben Simmons thought that I have, and I'll tell people a long time, it could be a lot of things, and I use that word complacency. And I'm just going to say this real quick, where I say he's happy or he's
Yeah.
content with where he is.
You think he made it already?
He's a star.
Making money.
He's an all-star. He's extremely wealthy.
Defender.
His accolades are what they are, and he's right now okay with that.
He young. He like. Oh, cool.
So, like a lot of the legends have said, if you want to do this, and you keep saying in a lot of interviews that you want to be the best Ben Simmons that you can be,
You gotta work
the
hard.
question again becomes, like Shaq said, do you want to be great, or do you want to just be good or really good?
Yeah.
Those are the difference. That's the tier.
All aspects.
So
Mhm.
you have to make it up in your mind. And I think, again, I just think watching him, seeing him on the court and seeing him off of the court, I think he's complacent and content with where he is at the star level that he has right now. And that's okay for him. So that is that. I'm not going to talk too much more about the Ben Simmons thing. Like I said, we can do a whole show
On him.
on that particular conversation
Exactly.
as well. So, also on the Sixers front, there has been a lot of talk, and the initial talks were the very high interest in Dame Lillard. Again, I believe that interest. No, this is from the beginning. I believe the interest is still there, but like I said, a deal has yet to been proposed or made where it's compatible or comparable for both sides.
Right.
So another quote from Carmelo Anthony on his time with Damian Lillard and some conversations that they had. So, and I quote, "That's his town, his organization, his city, and I'm coming to him as someone who's been a couple times in different places.
Right.
He's never talked about leaving. What he talked about is," and this is a quote from what he said, Dame says, "I want to win," end quote. So you're getting this quote from someone who played with this gentleman for, I think it was the last 2 seasons, understands that they built a relationship, a friendship, and a bond, and they talked candidly about some things, and you know, Carmelo put out what he could put out and being respectful to his friend and former teammate.
Right.
And you know, he says that he never said that he wanted to be traded. You know, so again, a couple months ago,
Right.
I saw an interview and I saw some quotes from Dame. And as a matter of fact, it was more than a couple months ago. It even goes back to the bubble with all the social injustice where was going on in the African American communities and how he stood up. And I mentioned that I always liked him as a player, as a person. I loved his game and everything. But when we got into that particular time frame, and I saw the interview and I saw the quotes, and then I just started watching some of the things that he was doing around that time. I brought it to the show and I brought it to the air, and I mentioned that I had a newfound respect for him as a person outside of a basketball player.
Right.
Where he was one who, and we talk about this a lot in the media, and a lot of media outlets talk about this. He was one who used, in my opinion, used his platform in the correct way, where he never really made it about him. He, in my opinion, tried to push the agenda that you look at me now and see me as Dame Dillard, the NBA player, the high profile NBA player.
Superstar.
But you also have to remember and take into consideration, before I got here, I was in that same situation that people have been creating, that racial stuff, the racism, racial tactics and everything like that. I was in that. I just happened to do what I focused and do what I did and got to where I am now. But I was there.
Right.
So
Experience.
yes, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to use my platform because I know I can reach some of the people that were in it at the time couldn't reach.
Right.
So I applauded him definitely for that. And you know, again, like I said, the new respect that I had for him, that had grown for him, was amazing. So he's jumped a little bit in my favorite players list. He was always on the list, but he's jumped a little bit.
Extended a little more. Yeah.
And he jumped up a little bit. And like I said,
Respect.
because of the respect that I had for the way he handled the situation that we were in, and the way he handled his platform and his ability to speak on it at the given time.
Right.
So, you know, in my opinion, just sidebarring a little bit, if the Sixers could somehow, some way
You'll love that when
do something and bring
who we gotta give up?
Dame Dillard here, you know, Ben Simmons is definitely going to be in that deal if that
draft
happens.
picks. Draft picks.
But here's the thing. The problem, I think, with
You love that.
the Sixers and getting a deal done for Ben Simmons is one of the things I mentioned, like Carmelo said, it's a business. There's no real loyalty. What they asked for, their price, and I can admit it was a little high. But we also mentioned on air, and when Baldy was here, we mentioned, I mentioned to a couple other people, that they would be fools not to ask for that. Because Ben Simmons is an all-star. And like I said, he may not be the great player as of yet that Philly fans expected or thought that we were getting, but he is an all-star.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to ask for that business wise to make it comparable for both sides.
Right.
So I don't know how it's going to play out, but the bottom line is on the Sixers end, you have to give me something comparable for Ben Simmons.
Right.
And depending on the situation, if you have to get another team involved or other teams involved,
Yeah.
I need to get players back. Where the Sixers are now, the draft picks don't really help them.
Right.
They need players, and they don't need just throw-in players.
Right.
If you're going to give me an all-star back or someone close to an all-star, you got to give me someone close to an all-star, and then you got to give me something else.
Right.
Most recently, there was talk and rumble about the John Wall situation. A lot of mixed opinions with the Philly fan base on that.
Like Wall.
I do, but it can't just end at John Wall, and you can't say we're going to throw in draft picks.
Right.
You've got to give us something else.
Right. Quick question, then. If y'all get Lillard, would that make y'all major? Or y'all already contenders? Would y'all make y'all major?
It would.
Like,
I think it would.
like we coming out the East. Period.
Well, it's still going to be tough for
Tough,
Brooklyn
yeah.
because,
Yeah.
like I said, Brooklyn
Milwaukee
did what
too.
they did.
Milwaukee too.
And we know the situation in Brooklyn. Those guys didn't play enough
Yeah.
together to really see what that's going to be like.
If they stay healthy.
But Milwaukee
It's there.
is
Ain't
there.
going
They're the defending champs, as we know.
Yeah.
So getting somebody like Dame could definitely keep us in the conversation.
All the time on TV, like
It would definitely
He's still young.
keep us in the conversation.
Right.
But
Him and,
again,
JoJo.
with that type of deal, it depends on what the cost is.
Right.
What else has to go with that?
Right.
You know, in
Y'all
order
gotta
to
add
say,
something. Right. Okay.
yeah, in order to say, oh yeah, we're in the conversation and we're contenders. Like I said, just possibly getting Dame arguably puts you in the conversation with the season that Joel Embiid had last year.
Yeah.
The season, even though it was a little shaky in the playoffs, that Tobias Harris had last
Right.
year as well.
Get another wing.
And
too.
then you got the growth of Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, Maxey.
You bring in Danny Green back, who was lost for us. And again, I say, if Danny Green had played, we still might have pulled that series out, even with the situation with Ben Simmons
Right.
that went on. We still possibly could have
Y'all need
done it.
another
Danny
wing.
Green
Yeah.
was definitely missed
Get a wing
in that
yeah.
situation. So, yeah, I think that would, like I said, I think it would immediately put us back and to keep us in the conversation rather. But to say immediate contenders, you would have to look at the complete roster if it was overhauled with that type of deal,
Right.
and then you would be able to compare it a little bit better with
Right.
what's going on in and what's going on in Milwaukee and in Brooklyn.
Right.
So Robert Reeves just gave us a quote. I'm going to try and see if I can get that comment back up. Let's see. I'm trying to get it, Rob. I can't. Okay, here we go. Wow, I'm sorry, Rob. I was just going away. He left a couple comments. He says on one point, I agree with everything Joe said. He don't have the confidence to shoot the ball on that stage. I agree with that. He also said he's a two-time All-Star. I just don't want to give up Maxey as far as the trade and the deal, and he'll possibly be moved. He also said John is 41, 44, and a player option with $47 million extra years. Don't nobody want that contract. So thanks for chiming in, Robert Reeves, also a coach in the midst of all this. And a lot of things I agree with what you just said. You're right. So finally, the last quote is something that is somewhat dear to my heart.
Right.
One of the reasons, arguably, why I had to step away from coaching for a little bit, and then it just ultimately went to where it is and where I am now. I'm sure Baldy can relate to this. Robert Reeves that's tuned in, I'm sure he will be able
Right.
to relate to this as well. And this is a quote from a local kid who made it to the pros, Rondé Hollis Jefferson. And here is the quote, and I quote, We're in an era, if you coach a kid hard, they quit and their parents allow it.
Wow.
End quote. Now, I'm getting ready to do something. I had to hit the applause button and give you some sound effects on that because a lot of you may not know how true that is, how impactful and infectious that is, and it is completely and utterly true. I've always found that for a long period of time, and maybe even a little bit now,
Right.
a lot of youth coaches do not want to own up and tell, this is a little bit different, but to own up and tell kids and tell the parents of the kids
Right.
that your kid is not that good.
We talked about that on the show one time. Do you remember
But-
when you involved?
Yeah, he can be worked with, and we're willing to do that,
Keeping it real.
but you have to accept the fact that
He is what he is.
he is where he is and what he is.
For a reason.
So with him saying this,
Uh-huh.
you know, and again, it goes into what we talked about, and this is partially including with the Ben Simmons situation,
Right.
the coddling and everything that's going on with the
Spoon-fed.
change in the AAU
Right.
circuit. A lot of these young men, young women, and youth in general
Yeah.
are being told things
Mm-hmm.
and they're not being told the complete truth.
Yeah.
And they've become entitled where they think I played on this team, so
I'm good.
I know I'm good. I'm, you know, you owe me. No,
No.
I don't owe you.
It's a privilege.
There were instances when I was coaching and we talked to the kids, and sometimes the parents want to sneak into the locker room and sit there and talk to the kids. We have to tell the parents, get out.
Sorry.
No, I'm not sorry.
No,
Get
I'm
out.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know what you're saying. I'm
sorry.
saying,
Yeah.
but I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
Leave.
He's
I need
mine
y'all to
right
leave.
now. He's mine for 3
For
hours.
this hour,
Yeah.
2 hours,
He's
2.5,
mine.
3 hours,
He's
or whatever,
mine. Right.
he's mine.
That's right. You gotta get over that.
When all of this is over,
He's yours again.
you get in the car and go home. You get home,
Yeah.
then you talk about that.
Yeah. Right now, this is my time.
During the game, halftime, while we in the game, he's mine.
That's right.
And I need to talk to my team, so I need the parents to step out for a minute.
Yeah. I'm his parent right now.
And if parents, you have an issue with that, you don't want me to talk to the kid without you
Just saying
here,
for you. Sorry.
you can take your uniform off, leave it in the middle of the floor. I'll find another kid that wants to play.
Right. It's just
That and another parent that will want their kid to play and support their kid
Yeah.
in playing.
On the sideline.
You know, so
Mm-hmm.
this quote is very, very fitting to what's going on today with a lot of these youth
Mm-hmm.
that again think they are entitled and think that something is owed to them.
Right.
It's not owed. I mean, listen to what Carmelo Anthony said. There's no loyalty. I don't have to be loyal to you. Me and my uncle, we always told the kids and the parents in the beginning of the season, during the regular season, everybody's gonna get the opportunity to play. But naturally, when we get into the playoffs, bench is gonna get shorter. It's a mainstay. I mean, it happens at all levels. It even happens in the pros. You'll have guys that will get spot minutes in games and whatever, play special teams. If it's NFL, get some special minutes or some short minutes in games just to get their feet wet or whatever. If they don't perform to the right level, when crunch time comes, when the playoffs come, they may find themselves out of the rotation.
True.
You know, I mean, it happened with the Sixers. Particularly, Shake Milton could be a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Shake Milton, last season, the regular season, had a hell of a season.
I like it.
It got late in the season, going into the playoffs,
Right.
and his play dipped off.
Right.
He got somewhat out of the rotation.
Right.
And he worked his way back in. Somewhat out of
Off the bench,
desperation,
right,
somewhat
right,
out of
right.
adjusting to make a run or do
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And he had that game
I like it.
where he put himself back in the rotation.
He worked at it.
And that's the thing that we talk about Ben Simmons. Like, he did what he was supposed to do to get himself back into the rotation.
Right.
Ben just thinks because I'm the star,
Well,
I'm
you
gonna
can talk to
I'm
him,
gonna
Jay.
always be in the rotation no matter what.
Right.
But you have a different coaching staff. You have a different front office staff now
Right.
who know and understand basketball,
Right.
and their job is to win basketball games.
Absolutely.
So they're going to do what's best for the
For the
team
team.
and put the team in the best position
There
to
you go.
win.
There you go. There you go.
And like I said, a lot of people talked about Doc in the situation with the playoff debacle. I agree. There was enough blame to go around. But I also told people that
He was
as a former coach,
Right.
those mistakes that people said that he made, I understood,
Yeah.
and I was willing to live with from being in those shoes. Maybe not at that pro NBA level, but being in that position at another level,
He wasn't the reason
where
lost.
ideally, as a coach, in the mind frame of a coach,
Right.
ideally,
Right.
I want my best players
On the floor.
on the floor
At all
when
times.
I need them
Right.
on the floor.
Right. He ain't the reason why they lost.
And arguably, at the time, he was one of the best players. He just did not perform like one of the best players. So again, like I said, there was enough blame to go around.
Right.
But I just had to tell people, as a former coach, I understood and I knew what angle or where his thought process was when he kept the bench in a little bit too long. It's like, these guys are playing. I got guys over there that ain't giving me nothing.
Right. Right.
Maybe if I leave them here for a minute,
Right.
they'll wake up and they'll get right, and then they'll
I
go
give-
back
give
in
them
and
some
do
minutes, yeah.
it. So again, it happens. You know, like I said, if you've never been a coach,
You don't understand.
you really won't truly understand it.
Right.
So it's 12 o'clock,
Yep.
5 minutes after 12. That is your first half of this episode of the Sports Rap Podcast. We are going to take a quick break.
Yes.
When we come back, we are going to get into week two's recap in the NFL.
Right.
And then before we close out today, we are definitely going to give you our week 3 picks.
Right.
Folks, stay tuned. You are tuned to Sports Rap right here on Heat 100 Radio.
Yo, D, you got a sheet for week 3? Okay.